Can you see that angels and demons are the same thing? Can you see that your demons, that which we have called our demons, are our angels? That's what we're called to do. Right now especially. But in general. That's the magic. That's what flips it all around. And I've had this realization to varying degrees before. The amazing thing about realization is that it keeps compounding on itself. You realize, and then you forget, and then you re-realize, and you realize a little bit more the next time, and then you forget again. At least for me. I'm not saying it's this way for everybody. But this is the fun of my journey, which is being documented for my expression, my choice, just because I want to. And I have been feeling so out of it lately, so out of presence, so removed from presence, so not present. There's been so much happening in the mental space, and I know that that is not unusual with the mix of energies we have going on right now too. It's like a lot of sucking things back up and shutting things back down, but that's not working. That doesn't work, right? We've already gone too far. We already know once Pandora's out of the box, Pandora doesn't go back in the box. You can't just close it all back down and go, no, we're gonna go back to being asleep again. That was scary. You can't do that. Technically, okay, if you ask, if you really, really choose that, you can choose a different experience. We all have that power. If you decide in this lifetime that waking up is not what you want to do, you can say, I'm not ready for all of this. Give me only what I'm ready for. And that's smart too. Give me what I'm ready for. I think it helps to continue expanding, to not put a limit on what you think you're ready for, to trust that what you are given is what you are ready for, that it wouldn't be given to you otherwise. But technically, we do have that choice. We have that ability to kind of shut things down again. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to say that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no time crunch. There are no contracts in the way that we perceive them in this realm. When everything will play out eventually, there's no concern about the time of it. So if you choose to do some different things in this lifetime, then that is fine. That's okay, and you're allowed to do that. And certainly it doesn't have to be this big struggle. I know I make it more of a struggle than it needs to be. I know I do that all the time. And that's just me. That's my version. I have a flair for the dramatic. There's a part of me that really likes drama. So it wants some struggle, and it wants to be able to point and say, look, I climbed that with my bare fingertips, and I almost fell a couple times, and man, it was scary. Really, that hilltop was a 3-foot incline. It's all a prop. This is a play. Those were all just props. It was made to look very scary and dramatic. There was a green screen involved, some fans blowing. It really wasn't a big deal. Really nothing serious happened there. But there's a part of me that likes to perceive that it did, because it enjoys that adrenaline rush. And I'm not going to deny that or deny it that pleasure. I can allow it to indulge in some drama without taking that seriously. I don't have to take seriously the part of me that likes to make things appear serious. I can let it play a role. I can play along with it. I can just go along with it and maintain awareness and say, okay, we're going to play pretend. We're going to put on the little dress and the hat and we're going to play this role. That's fine. But it doesn't have to be that way. And plenty of people don't create as much of a scene as I do. And that's fine too. And some people make more of a scene. It's all great. No problem with any of it. No problem whatsoever. Because you know what? Whatever it is that you are creating, it's presence. Whatever it is that you're creating, it's presence. So no matter what your creation is, no matter what you're calling into being, it is being that you are calling forth. It is presence. It is consciousness. So we're succeeding in calling forth more of self, more of awareness. Suffering is an illusion. You can't, this is what I believe. I'm not going to state this as an arbitrary truth for everyone, but I do believe we each create our own reality by our perception of it, and this is my understanding. This is my perception. Suffering is an illusion. There is no such thing as suffering. You cannot create suffering that is defined as something opposite of presence, because what is the presence of suffering but more presence? It's still presence. The presence of anything, whatever you point to as the thing, and we get caught up with the thing that we're pointing at it and saying, no, but this thing is not allowed to be present. That's the mistake. That's the only part where we get confused. And again, it's not a problem. It's just, it's pleasurable and useful to us to correct that perception in seeing no matter what it is that we are calling into presence, it is present. It is presence. It's the same thing. Call it suffering, call it bliss. It's all just presence. The word doesn't actually mean anything. The word, it's a cloak. It's a distraction from the truth of what it is. And what it is just is. What it is just is. It's the isness. It is being. The what is not relevant. The what is a red herring. It is present. It is presence. It doesn't matter if you think or say or believe that you are creating suffering, that you're creating pain, or that you're creating bliss and peace and healing. Doesn't matter. You're actually creating the same thing either way. You are calling presence into being. Everything is transmuted by this perspective, this perception. Everything, can you see, can you feel everything converts to presence? It's purified into its true nature, its essential state, being. It doesn't matter what it is you're looking at. If you recognize that it is present, therefore it is presence, you have shed it, you have removed the cloak from it, you've distilled it to its essential form, and you're viewing it in its essential form. And you know that it's good in a way that is beyond good and evil. It's not subject to that dichotomy. And when you're viewing that, when you're in that place, you can see that even the presence of that which we call evil It's not actually evil. It's presence, but we've put a limitation on what we believe presence can be. We've gotten distracted. Presence put on this big scary costume and stomped around making a big mess, and we went, oh no, we can't have that. That's not allowed to be present. To be presence, except it is. It is. It doesn't matter if you think it's not allowed to be, it is. That is presence. That is angelic. That is the same energy. And what assisted me... Oh. I gotta meet with somebody real quick. Hang on. Anyway. Had to stop and chat with somebody. What was I saying? That I had felt very out of presence. And it's been that way for quite some time. I don't know timetable wise, but it's been a struggle for the past several weeks at least to really feel present. That's been my experience. And there's been all of this shame and guilt and other stuff that I was focused on. Things changing tremendously, just the death of the old identity, and I was caught up in the illusion part of it. Which is not a bad thing. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing either. There's no such thing. It's just I was so focused on the what that I couldn't see the is. And it kept sucking me in that way. And it was today, just a little while ago, talking with my partner, and she said to me, have you been struggling to feel present lately? And I said, yeah, I have. And we talked about that and how it's not a problem. It's just an experience. And we agreed that both of us had felt that to varying degrees recently. And just acknowledging that. And it just struck me. It came to me again, came through me again, because it's happened before. But I forgot, so I could remember that the absence of presence is just the presence of absence. Which means you can hear it right there. It's presence. It's not... Absence is not a thing. Absence doesn't actually mean that doesn't exist. Absence doesn't exist. Because in order to perceive absence, we must be perceiving the presence of it. Right? So it's right there. It's right there. Absence is just presence wearing another hat. It's just presence in a cloak. That's it. And so even in feeling the absence of presence, I am feeling presence. I just wasn't allowing it to be that. I was so focused on the hat that I was missing what was wearing the hat. And so this is true for everything. And there were all of these emotions that I was rejecting in myself because I didn't feel comfortable with them being there. I didn't want them there. This anxiety, shame, and grief, and anger, sometimes anger, but predominantly those three that I kept saying, why are you here? And either I'm tired of you being here, or I need to figure out why you're here so that you stop coming around. Why are you here? Let me figure that out so that you stop being here. None of that was actual acceptance. And all of it was missing the point that not only are none of those things bad or wrong or problematic, All of them are the same thing. They are all presence taking a different form. And the form of presence is not relevant. The form gets to be played with, the form we get to have fun with in the moment, yeah. But it's really all the same thing. Really, it's all the same experience underneath. It is the experience of presence. Presence of what? Presence of anger, presence of grief, presence of shame, presence of anxiety, presence of negative self-talk, presence of negative feelings about the body, presence of negative feelings about the mind, whatever it is. It's just presence. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all of these different visitors are actually the same, and they are all the divine. They are all the divine. Each one of these characters is the divine, is an angel, if you want to put it that way. And how often have we been taught to treat strangers with kindness, to invite them into our home? This is the meaning of that parable, to invite strangers in, because you never know when you're in the company of angels. You don't know who it is you're entertaining. And it turns out all of them are. They're all angels. Of course, it kind of loses its potency if that's what they look like from the beginning. So, for example, it's easy to invite joy in, relatively, except when we're trained not to. Different subject. It's easy to invite pleasure in. It's more natural. It's easy to invite in something that looks nice. Like you go, oh yeah, that feels nice. That's good. It feels good. I'm inviting that in. That's a lot easier, tends to be, than really inviting something like grief or anger, dense, heavy. And they're all angels in different ways. But just as expressed and discussed in Enochian magic and texts, angels don't really always look the way you think that they will. In fact, by the descriptions of actual angels in a lot of that text, you would think that they were demons. They're pretty freaky looking. They got eyes and all over the place. Why so many eyes? And impossibly rotating parts, and too many of this and not enough of that, and wings sprouting out of the wazoo. They don't look nice. But when we realize that they're all the same thing, they are all expressions of the divine, then we understand there's nothing to be afraid of here. In a deeper way, it's a knowing. We recognize the self. We recognize, oh, this is me. This is more of me. This is presence. And it can never be anything other than that. Nothing can be. That's there is only presence. Nothing can be that is not present. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's all the same thing. It doesn't matter how dark and dense and scary it appears. It is of the light of consciousness, the light of creation, the light of being. It literally can't be any other way. That's just it. So when you know how to tilt your head this way and recognize that everything that is presence, is present, you see the glimmer of light. You see that everything shines. Everything has that same sparkle to it. The deepest, darkest, heaviest, whatever. The nastiest demon that you could conjure. Guess what? It's present. What does that make it? Presence, actually. Presence wearing a big scary costume. And when you realize that, the costume kind of falls away. Maybe it's still there, but it's in the background now. Now the costumed part of it is the distant part. And the sparkling purity of its being comes to the forefront. It's just shifting the perspective. When the big scary costume is right in front of your face, yeah, it's hard not to focus on anything other than that, and it's hard not to feel anything except things about that. But when we can recognize, okay, the fact that this is here means that it is. And what does that mean? It is present. It's presence. It's the presence of this. And then presence comes into focus. It shifts. The cloven hooves and the horns and whatever move into the background. And the presence comes to the foreground. And you recognize, oh, you're just another version of me. We are the same thing. We are the same. And there's no fear here. There's no concern. There's nothing to be concerned about. We're just basking in being together. And it feels really, really good to recognize that again. And to recognize specifically that everything that is called a demon, everything I have called my demons, because that's been happening a lot recently, is looking at these things in me that are coming up and recognizing there is no difference between my demons and my angels. They're the same thing. They are all serving the same purpose, which is bringing light in. They are all serving light. Nothing can do anything other than that. That's just it. Nothing that can do anything other than serve the light in generating more of it, in bringing more presence. Once it is present, it's expanded presence. So there's nothing to fear. There is nothing other than the self. There's nothing wrong. There is nothing that can be wrong. The fact that it bees makes it right. Demonstrates its rightness. And so I've been expanding this too. Actually, this was prior to this, and I'm half tempted to put this in a separate video, but fuck it, I'm talking now. Prior to this, I was recognizing that my definitions of health have been very limited, and that's been something I'm expanding. Oh my god, everybody's coming in today. Second time stopping to talk to somebody. Doesn't matter. I just want to finish this out and express. Maybe I'll put this separately. I don't know. That feels kind of weird. Removing the limitations for the perception of health, specifically. So again, recognizing that the presence of anything is just presence. The presence of anything doesn't matter what it is. It's divine. It's divine. And so who am I to point at anything and say, no, that's wrong, that's not right, that's not the way it's meant to be? Who am I to point at anything and say that's bad or unhealthy? Because that's another way of saying bad. That's another word for bad. And I feel that I have been severely limiting in my perception healthfulness and restricting it to only demonstrating in a handful of ways. It has to fit in this very specific box of experience and appearance. And if it doesn't fit in this box, then it's not health. Which is to say, not good. And that's just not true. That is just patently false. Everything that is, and is divine. It simply is. It is neither good nor bad, and it is divine and perfect, beautiful, exquisite. I've been defining health and deriving it from physical form, and physical form meeting very specific criteria. And that's just a ridiculous limitation upon the expression of divinity, and a ridiculous limitation upon health that does not truly exist. If we define health by well-being, if we say that, if health is well-being, then we recognize that all of being is well inherently. It doesn't matter what's happening with the form. It doesn't matter what's being displayed there. All of that is well. All of that is well. Under the surface, it's all well-being. It can't be anything other than that. And so to criticize and separate and put into boxes and say, well, this is health and this is not, it's such a surface-focused, it's so wrapped up in the illusion. It's not talking about actual health. It's not talking about actual well-being. That stream is present throughout. That's resonating through all of this experience. Doesn't matter what it looks like on the surface. There's as much health in an individual who is riddled with some sort of terminal disease and is passing away. There is as much health in that as in a newborn baby. There is. That being is not under threat. That life is not at risk. It's continuing. It's transforming. It's transitioning. Absolutely, it is in transition. But because it's in transition and we look at that and we don't like the way that looks, that looks scary, We call that bad. We call that unhealthy. We're missing the bigger picture, the much, 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 much bigger picture there. Does it seem healthy for a caterpillar to dissolve into goo when it's in the chrysalis and transforming into a butterfly? By our traditional definition of health, no. If our traditional definition of health, which is focused on the maintenance of this body and for it to continue and sustain and not change and to look the same and to perform the same and to just be the same all the time, and for any of that to change, for those numbers to go up or down, again, outside of this very limited range, for the size to go up or down, for the strength to go up or down, any of those things, oh, health is at risk. Health is at risk. That's what we see. And if you're out of these ranges, you're in the not healthy range. And it's not healthy because it could, because what we believe is that it could lead to or indicate or whatever the dissolution of this physical form. But the dissolution of this physical form is not a problem. It's not unhealthy for this form to dissolve. It's not unhealthy for this form to dissolve. Caterpillars know that. And it's not unhealthy for this form to take on any expression that it chooses to take on. Why are we limiting the experience of health to a tiny subset, a tiny category, a tiny subset of experience? Health could be all of this. Health is all of this, but we're calling it just this much. Everything is vibrant health. Everything is vibrantly healthy. Those characteristics exist and are derived from presence, from a deeper place, not this form, not what the form looks like. The appearance of the form does not dictate healthy or unhealthy. No relation whatsoever, no fucking relevance. The form is, however it is, whatever it is, not relevant. It is. It is, and in its isness, it is eternal life. In its isness, it is well. In its isness, it is the divine expressing perfectly in that moment as it chooses to, as it desires to. And that is healthy. And I realize that I have been keeping myself out of alignment with my own truth, my own perspective, by missing this point that I am now seeing expanding further and further before me. Health is everything. There is no experience that is outside of health. There is no experience that is outside of life, not even death. And I would like to stop defining health in physical terms, stop deriving it from physical experience and a very limited subset of it at that, and expand the inclusivity of health to include everything, for everything to be healthy. And not limiting what that means. That doesn't mean it all has to look a certain way. I'm not saying everything is healthy for your body and so it's gonna make your body look this way, become fit and cut and whatever, because that's not the only illustration of health either. I'm saying everything can be health exactly as it is. It doesn't have to change. It doesn't have to shift to fit this fucking single picture of health that we have in society. So that's what it is. I'm tired of believing that health can only look one way and only ever be one way, and you either have it or you don't. That's not true. That's just not true. And I would like to radically expand my perception of health, feeling it, deriving it from being. All being is well. Doesn't matter how it bees. And it's being the way that it wants to be, and that is healthy. That's it. It can't be anything other than healthy. I'm redefining healthiness. And vastly expanding the terms of it. Because again, everything is. And everything is good. It can't be anything other than that. It just can't. No matter what it looks like, underneath, under the surface, pull back the curtain, lift up the hood, and it's pure divine source energy running under there. Same stuff. Pure presence, pure consciousness, pure life, light, love. That's all it ever is. That's all it ever can be. So it's all really, really fucking well and healthy and fabulous and attractive and abundant and secure. No matter what it looks like, it's all, always, all of those things. And no matter what you feel like, if you feel you are in the absence of presence, you are in presence. You are in presence. If you feel that you are empty, you are full of emptiness. Now you can feel the fullness of yourself. It's just in a different form. It's just a different layer on the top, just a different hat, different color, shade, whatever. It's the same thing. That part doesn't matter. You're still full of you. You are still present and surrounded by the presence of yourself. Always, always, always. And always and in all ways, I fucking love you.